Breaking news this Wednesday night. Vaccine passports are coming to Canada.
I know we all look forward to traveling again.
When being inoculated means being able to travel internationally, and why some Canadians are still reluctant to roll up their sleeves. Michael Spavor's sentence, detention before deportation. When will China finally allow him to come home? Plus, theaters try to flip the script.
I'll be back.
Enticing moviegoers to return to their seats.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with breaking news out of Ottawa that will affect anyone who wants to travel outside the country. Ottawa is aiming to have a vaccine passport ready by the fall, but it won't be designed for everyday life. Abigail Bimman is following this developing story. And Abigail, the government has been saying this was coming all along, but what's new tonight?
Well, Robin, the government isn't offering real specifics, but here's what we know. They plan to launch a proof of vaccination program to help with international travel. It will be digital, involve a code, and be built off the existing ArriveCan app that everyone coming to Canada must use. Quebec has announced plans for a QR code-based vaccine passport that people must use to go to bars, restaurants, and gyms in that province. The federal government wouldn't say today if the mechanics of their app will be the same, but they are clear the passport is not being built to be used domestically for reasons like Quebec. It's being billed as a federal tool to help provide Canadians a standardized option when they travel abroad. That said, if a province wants to co-opt it for their own purposes, Ottawa says they're welcome to.
If provinces decided in their own jurisdiction that this was another measure that would bring an additional protection to their citizens, they would obviously be able to use this credential for that purpose.
Now, they hope to launch this in early fall. Ottawa will need to get the health data from provinces, and they say they're confident that will happen, even though some, such as Alberta and Ontario, are opposed to provincial vaccine passports. Two other things I'd like to note. Listening to this press conference, ministers said the passport will include which type of vaccine someone got, but they had nothing new to say about the problem of some places not accepting people who mixed and matched vaccines. Also worth noting, there was a change in tone in terms of travel being a responsible option again. Since the start of the pandemic, the theme has largely been this is not the time to travel. We certainly were not hearing that today. Robin?
All right, thanks for that, Abigail. Now to Vancouver, where nearly 3 years after her arrest at the request of the U.S., the official extradition hearing got underway for Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou. What happens next could have major implications for the Canadians behind bars in China. Just hours before Meng's hearing began in Vancouver, Canadian Michael Spavor was sentenced to 11 years in prison after being found guilty of espionage. Experts say the timing is no coincidence. It's widely believed China is trying to ramp up the pressure on Canada to release Meng. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today called Spavor's verdict unacceptable and unjust and said Canada will not rest until both Spavor and Michael Kovrig are safely brought home. Let's bring back Abigail Bimman in Ottawa. Abigail, this is the other big story you've been following today. Bring us up to speed on what's happened.
Well, Robin, Michael Spavor was sentenced to 11 years in prison. He was handed a fine and, perhaps most importantly, sentenced to deportation. Just like at trial, a show of international support to hear Michael Spavor's sentence. And from those closest to him, in a statement, Spavor's family said Michael's life passion has been to bring different cultures together through tourism and events shared between the Korean Peninsula and other countries, including China and Canada. This situation has not dampened, but strengthened his passion. Spavor had a consular visit after learning his fate.
He had 3 messages he wanted to send. 1, thank you for all your support. It means a lot to me. 2, I am in good spirits. And 3, I want to get home. When he can get home is still the biggest question. Canada seeking clarification from China as to whether deportation comes after 11 years in prison or earlier.
I think probably in China's own interest, and that sooner rather than later. But they won't budge until the solution for Madame Meng.
Many China watchers believe a resolution in the Meng Wanzhou case is the only way to bring both Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig home. Her formal extradition hearing began Wednesday in Vancouver. Canada plans to appeal Spavor's verdict.
A mock sham trial with absolutely no transparency whatsoever, and a verdict that is completely unjustified.
The foreign minister stresses they're in serious talks with the United States, but he wouldn't say whether that involves Meng's case too.
The discussions, I will say, are with respect to finding a way to secure the release of the two Michaels, and I'll leave it at that.
There's still room for either an agreement between the Americans and Huawei and Meng Wanzhou. We're, in a sense, obviously the most interested party, but the negotiations would have to be between the U.S. and China.
Meanwhile, Michael Kovrig still awaits his verdict, and there's no word when that may happen. Canada says it's working hard to secure both men's release, but questions are being raised about whether that plan is working, as they've now sat in prison for close to 1,000 days. Robin?
Abigail Bimman in Ottawa. Thanks, Abigail. Admiral Art McDonald says he's ready to return as commander of the Canadian Armed Forces after military police investigating a sexual misconduct allegation opted not to charge him. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson joins us now. Mercedes, is McDonald just able to go back to his old job?
Robin, today, two men are claiming to be the rightful commander of the military. Acting Chief of the Defense Staff, General Wayne Eyre, and Admiral Art McDonald. While McDonald wants to return to his job, the decision isn't up to him. It's up to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And both political and military sources say a lack of criminal charges against McDonald have not removed concerns about whether he has the moral authority to lead the military. For now, McDonald remains on leave. Tonight, we can share details with you of the allegations that forced Admiral McDonald to step aside. Navy Lieutenant Heather McDonald told military police that the Chief of the Defense Staff, Admiral Art McDonald, sexually assaulted her on board a Canadian Navy frigate, the HMCS Montreal, while it was docked in Greenland in 2010. Heather McDonald alleges the incident took place at a VIP party with Canadian and international dignitaries and military officials present, some of whom were described as drinking heavily. During the party, McDonald says a button popped off of her shirt, exposing her breasts. She says her commanding officer, the captain of the HMCS Montreal, tried to help her and shield her from the room. But that's when Art McDonald grabbed the captain's head and shoved it into her breasts, laughing. Heather McDonald says she was horrified and immediately went to bed. She said the ship's captain checked on her the next morning, concerned for her welfare, but Art McDonald has never apologized. After interviewing witnesses, military police said a military prosecutor recommended against laying charges. Military police have not disclosed what their investigation found, but said the evidence gathered from these witnesses was considered in the ultimate determination that the evidence did not support the laying of any charges. The military and federal government have not disclosed whether administrative action against Admiral McDonald could still be taken. Robin?
Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa. Thanks, Mercedes. Turning now to the pandemic. Quebec is the latest province to roll out its back-to-school plan, and the education minister says things will look different this September.
We are in a better position this year than 1 year ago.
Students will no longer be required to wear a mask in class, but they will still need one in common areas and on the bus. Teachers won't be required to wear a mask if they maintain physical distance. Unlike last year, there will be no class bubble system. The government says the plan may need to be adjusted depending on how the pandemic progresses in the fall. The highly contagious Delta variant is creating a lot of anxiety around the return to class. In the U.S., several states are seeing more children in hospital with COVID-19 compared to previous waves. And as Heather Yourex-West explains, it's why some Canadian pediatricians are calling on governments to reconsider the removal of restrictions.
With summer vacation nearly over, Ali Kathari worries about the fall.
Like anybody, any parent, I'm feeling really nervous, especially with the new restrictions being totally lifted. It makes me feel really apprehensive sending the kiddos back.
Her children are both too young to be vaccinated. Children continue to be far less likely to become severely ill from COVID-19. But as cases surge in the U.S., doctors are noticing a troubling trend.
We're seeing a lot of illness in children, both from COVID and RSV, which is overwhelming the hospital systems.
We still don't know if the Delta variant is causing more severe illness in children, but it is more infectious, and more cases mean more kids are becoming seriously ill.
We're in quite a different situation from the United States and Canada, because across the country we have much higher vaccination rates. And so I think that that's really going to help us moving forward into the fall.
The chair of the Canadian Pediatric Society says it's critically important for kids to return to class, but the risk of COVID-19 is still there, especially as new cases rise across Canada.
Is it possible that there could be outbreaks from Delta in schools this fall? Yes, it is possible. And so for that reason, I think vaccination is important. I think keeping a close eye on what is happening with COVID is important.
It's why many physicians are concerned with Alberta's plan to discontinue most of its pandemic response measures next week. Pediatricians in that province sent a letter Monday to the Jason Kenney government. Although it is relatively rare for children to become seriously ill with COVID-19, it says the pediatric ICU beds could be overwhelmed if COVID-19 becomes widespread in schools and community settings. Fears that without some measures in place, hospitals here could soon experience what so many in the U.S. are seeing now. Heather, Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Kids under 12 are still not able to get vaccinated, but the number of people getting the shot in this country is growing. Just over 82% of eligible Canadians have received at least one dose, and more than 71% are now fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Vaccines still remain our best defense against the fourth wave. Research shows the shots provide a high level of protection from serious illness, even from the Delta variant. But as Jamie Morocker explains, facts may not be the best way to reach Canadians hesitant to get the shot.
Rochelle Lawrence says her decision to get a COVID-19 vaccine was driven by family.
The fact that to go see my grandparents in a long-term care home, I needed that vaccine in order to safely visit them.
But the choice, she says, wasn't a simple one. She felt hesitant, overwhelmed, she says, by misinformation on social media.
Just seeing all this different conflicting information, not being sure what to believe.
In Canada, about 18% of the population 12 and older is still unvaccinated, a number that's barely budged over the last few weeks. Experts say vaccinations are the key to combating a fourth wave.
They call it the pandemic of the unvaccinated. The vast majority of people that will get COVID will be the unvaccinated people.
Colin Gray considers himself vaccine cautious.
Before I shove anything in my body, I want to know what's going to happen down the road.
The 57-year-old says he feels uncomfortable the vaccines were given emergency use authorization instead of approval by the U.S. FDA. Sabina Vorha-Miller, who has made it her mission to help people understand vaccines, says this only applies to COVID-19 shots in America.
There's just that confusion as to whether we have partial approval here in Canada, which is not true. We have full approval here.
The only reason I would get it is so I can go and travel. If I wasn't into traveling, I wouldn't get it.
Gray says he prefers to hold off for longer-term studies.
Once that initial immune response is done, there's really nothing left over of the vaccines to be able to cause any long-term impacts or side effects.
Regardless of someone's reasons for not getting vaccinated, experts encourage empathy, suggesting if you're going to speak with a loved one, to do so with compassion, patience, and persistence. For those still on the fence, they say, ask questions and look for reliable sources so your decision can be based on facts. Robin?
Jamie Morocker in Toronto. Thanks, Jamie. In Germany, thousands of people will still have to get another vaccine shot because the doses they took may have been tampered with. German police say a nurse has admitted to replacing Pfizer doses with saline water before injecting patients. Up to 8,600 people are now being called to get a real dose as a precaution. The nurse has not been charged, though investigators say she has expressed skepticism about the vaccine on social media. The West Coast gears up for another scorcher. Coming up, how high temperatures are expected to soar and when. Plus, tragedy on a Canadian highway, the deadly consequences of this crash. In British Columbia, not only are cases of COVID-19 rising, but temperatures as well. The province is bracing for another heat wave, the third this summer. Extreme heat warnings have been issued for a large portion of the province, from the north coast to Vancouver and into the Fraser Canyon. Temperatures are forecast to reach the high 30s tomorrow until at least Sunday, but it could feel like 40 degrees with the humidity. And the nights won't offer much relief. Overnight lows will stay near 20 degrees.
Many people here are not acclimatized to this type of temperature, particularly when it doesn't cool down at night. We need to remind people that high indoor temperatures can be particularly dangerous for older adults.
More than 700 people died when a scorching heat dome hit BC in late June. The province was caught off guard. This time around, cooling centres are being set up so residents can escape the heat. RCMP will also conduct welfare checks on vulnerable people. In Alberta, RCMP say at least 2 people are dead after a multi-vehicle collision on the Trans-Canada Highway. The deadly crash happened west of Calgary this morning. Police say a van veered through the median into oncoming traffic. It collided with a car that was then rear-ended by a large truck, unable to avoid the collision. Another van then hit the truck. Police say both occupants of the car were killed. At least 3 others were sent to hospital. Still ahead, key Afghan cities keep falling to the Taliban. Could the capital be next?
You're watching Global National.
A rescue operation is underway in northern India, where a landslide has killed at least 10 people. Massive boulders tumbled onto a highway near the border with Tibet. Several vehicles, including a bus, were struck. More than 100 rescuers are on scene searching for dozens of people who remain trapped. Heavy rain has caused several landslides in recent weeks. Wildfires are raging in Algeria and have killed at least 65 people. Right now, roughly 50 wildfires, some of the worst in the country's history, are tearing through a mountainous region east of the capital. Among the dead are soldiers who were sent in to help. The government suspects arsonists are behind the fires because so many erupted in a short time. A heat wave has gripped northern Africa and a huge part of the Mediterranean. Temperatures have soared above 45 degrees, turning Algeria's forests into a tinderbox. In Afghanistan, the Taliban is capturing territory at an alarming rate. And tonight there are worries that the capital of Kabul could fall next. The Islamist group is on a sweeping offensive to take advantage of U.S. troops pulling out of the country. And as Jackson Prosco reports, despite the 20-year war, Afghans are once again left defenseless.
Emboldened by the withdrawal of the U.S. military, Taliban fighters have overtaken key cities, sending thousands of panicked residents fleeing for safety. The whole city has been conquered, boasts this purported Taliban fighter in the city of Farah. The collapse of Afghan security forces has been rapid, the offensive against them unrelenting. The Taliban has gained control over a wide swath of the country, capturing at least 8 provincial capitals in the last week alone.
There are very real risks of renewed atrocities against ethnic and religious minorities.
There has already been a wave of brutal assaults and murders. Government officials have been targeted, soldiers executed. Women and girls have reportedly been killed for how they're dressed. In the face of this growing security and humanitarian disaster, the U.S. has no plans to reverse course on its abrupt exit strategy.
I do not regret my decision.
The Taliban resurgence has been building for months. U.S. officials feared if they didn't proceed with plans to leave now, they would in fact have to send more troops to fight America's longest-running war.
This is their country. These are their military forces. These are their provincial capitals, their people to defend.
Instead, some Afghan troops are now folding without a fight. As the country where 165 Canadians died descends deeper into turmoil, there are fears the capital of Kabul could fall to the Taliban within the next 90 days. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Up next, cinema incentives, the plan to get people back into movie seats. But is Hollywood already facing a setback? The box office has taken a hit with the pandemic. There were theater closures, social distancing rules for seating, and generally theater goers not being comfortable. Now Cineplex has come up with a plan to lure audiences back. It's a membership service, but as Ross Lord reports, it may not help Hollywood.
Does advice from the silver screen apply to the movie industry itself?
If you build, he will come.
Canada's largest movie chain, Cineplex, is building a new subscription model, hoping customers come back to its 161 theaters across the country.
For $9.99 a month, you get a movie ticket for every month that you're a member. You can purchase additional tickets at that $9.99 price, and you receive 20% off concessions on all your visits.
Thank you.
Less expensive popcorn and cheaper tickets to woo customers who stayed away in droves and are in no rush to return.
Yeah, I would like to at some point. Yeah, not yet though.
We're still a little cautious with COVID.
With 2020 revenues reportedly a quarter of what they were before the pandemic, Cineplex was forced to slash jobs. But it insists there's reason for optimism.
The movie theaters have proven to be a very safe and entertaining and responsible choice for out-of-home entertainment, and we expect that to continue.
Some entertainment analysts are skeptical.
You still have to go somewhere physically in order to benefit from your membership, whereas Netflix and Spotify, you can consume your music or your movies from pretty much anywhere. That's a big hurdle.
The new subscription offer is turning some heads.
Yeah, that sounds really good. It would be something that we would definitely enjoy.
I'll be back.
Or is it time to roll the credits with moviegoing gone?
There's something out of here!
Ross Lord, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday night. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, your Canada is this recent lightning storm over Edmonton. We'd love to see your corner of the country, so please keep sending your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.